Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. Thank you. I have a motion moved by Bev Cutting, seconded by Carol Lawrence. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby returns to open session of Council at 10:05 a.m. Any questions or comments on that motion? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay. Mark, it was only, let the minutes note that it was only, the only items that were discussed were the ones that were on the, in the motion on property in closed session. Public meetings, we have none. Consent agenda. I have a motion moved by Doug Hutchison, seconded by R. Hergert. Be it resolved that items A1 to C2 inclusive contained in Part 1 consent agenda be adopted as printed, and further that authorization be given for the actions to be taken as may be necessary to give effect to the recommendations contained therein. Any questions or comments on the consent? All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. So, Mark, you can hand out those motions. We can get signatures on there to get them in line. So that moves us down to communications from Mayor and Council. And is there any of the council members? Councillor Lawrence. Carol?
Thank you. Just a reminder that the Ayton Ball Tournament is this weekend. I believe the Saturday morning there's a fireman's breakfast. And also, as I reported at Committee of the Whole, but just for public's knowledge, we lost a valued, very good member of the Newstead Recreation Committee in the person of Brenda Forrester. Passed away, oh gosh, now, I think it's a couple of weeks ago anyway that the celebration of life was, and very valued person and a very kind person. And lastly, you were there, Mr. Mayor, but I'll just quickly say the Dundalk homecoming, that the Durham girls, and I'm happy to say that our new councillor, Rebecca, marched with the Durham girls, carried the Canadian flag, and really happy to have her. However, the parade was very long and very wet, but there was a good crowd out. It did rain the whole way. The water was dripping off her ball caps.
Not to be confused with the water that was coming out from the water bottle that she didn't put the cap on and put in her pocket. Yeah, that was the other water.
Thanks for that visual. Rebecca.
So a few items of interest. Welbeck Wood Expo is this weekend, Friday, Saturday, 8 to 5. There were a couple. There was one that was a misprint, and it said it was last weekend, but it is actually this weekend. Lots of items going on at the West Grey Public Library. As Carol mentioned, in Normanby, in Ayton this weekend is the ball tournament. It goes 11th, 12th, 13th. The Durham Art Gallery has a Wednesday morning creators club for little children. Anyway, there's a couple weeks left there. And just of note, maybe for everyone, is that Hanover is undergoing a service review. I read that in the paper, so that's kind of interesting. In the last 2 weeks, I went to a Fringe Festival event here in Durham, and that was interesting. A lot of people went to a lot of effort to get art in our community, and it was really fun. There's a couple locations downtown. One in particular is the Just Arts, and their front window is very interesting this week. I encourage everybody to stop by. It was really fun to look at. That's it.
Anything else? Doug, Councillor Hutchison.
Yeah, just a couple of things. This past weekend, there was a harvest day at Fisher Farm. Unfortunately, I didn't get there, but it was a little wet in the morning, but apparently they pulled it off, and big thank you to the Fishers and Mary Lou Pfeffer for all the work they did on putting that together. So that was on Saturday, and then coming up this weekend, there's the Colleen Lawrence Memorial Run is this weekend in Newstead. So some people may want to get involved in that. Very worthwhile project for raising funds for mental health. And I believe the Abbeyfield Duck Race is this weekend, too. I
Saturday
think.
as well,
Saturday,
too.
yeah, so that's coming up. So a couple items to keep in mind.
You haven't bought a duck yet? I'm sorry, I've run out of tickets. Mr. Bell, if you want one, I did see that there was a couple still left out at Eckert Shell. Go around to Abbeyfield, they'll sell you one right there as well, too. So, yeah, you do have access still to the ducks if you want. Anything else, Carol?
Mr. Mayor, you bring to mind, I have tickets for the Ellenwood and District Chamber of Commerce that they asked me to try to sell, so I'll pass them down along. Now, it's for their elimination cash draw, which is being held on October the 20th. So I'll pass these down and hope people will take a look at it and maybe purchase a ticket.
I do know that the cash gets handed out, but I bought a ticket probably the last 10 years that they've had this. I haven't seen any get in my hand yet, but I have.
You might have the lucky one here.
Okay. Anything else? Certainly has been busy. Doug, you mentioned the, Fishers. I was down there on Saturday as well, too. Excellent to see all of that equipment that was used, power equipment from years ago. Dennis, when I got there, he was pulling out the combine with the old tractor. And last week I saw a combine that was going down with a 40-foot head on it. And this combine that Dennis was pulling out as a vintage had a 4-foot head cut on it. So things have grown just a little bit in the farming community. He did have a 2-row corn harvester there, but then he also had the old box harvester that you cut the corn with a hoe, threw it onto the wagon and took it up to the barn, and then you hand fed it into, and it chopped it there, a single stalk at a time, instead of the 8-row harvester that Mr. Bell and I saw, and I don't know whether Rebecca and Carol saw it as well too. Pallister Farms had a big display in the Dundalk, and they had an old Farmall tractor that Dale was driving, and his son was driving the harvester that I know it's got a 6-row head on it and travels at about 8 to 10 mile an hour down the field cutting 6 rows. Doug?
It just goes to show you, though, how farming has changed. I can remember with my grandfather actually using a grain, I forget what they call it now, where it actually made sheaths, and then you stooped the sheaths, and then you brought it in and you put the sheaths through the thresher machine, right? So, and even the loose hay, putting loose hay onto a wagon and using forks to take it off, so hay loader. That's, in my lifetime, so farming's changed a lot since my grandfather did some farming in this area. So pretty amazing.
And it was good to see, because there was a binder in operation down at Dennis's. He did have 2 thrashing machines that were in operation. Stan Doherty, who I'm sad to say on the way home passed away, and his funeral is this week, was on display, and he had the harvester where you could throw the sheaf in, but Dennis had an older one, thrash machine, where you had to have somebody stand on the entry and on the belt and cut the string and then feed it in as well too. So it certainly was a great day as the evolution of farming and the industrialization of it is growing dramatically. Okay. Any other reports? As I said, next weekend is huge as far as activities going in all corners of the municipality, and the Fringe Festival, Rebecca, I do understand, was very good. I better not say, I know it's been going for a long time, so I'm not going to say, yes, several years is the best way to put that. Thank you. And I'm glad to, and have heard that they did very well with that. Anything else? Good news, upcoming events? Very good. Thanks, Brent. We do have a couple of delegations this morning.
2016.
I've got the August 2016 meeting up here. Okay, fine, let's go to the 217. Don't laugh too much out there, Adam, please. We'll find it here on the laptop. Anyways, we do not have a delegation on today. We're down to the finance director, and Carrie is not with us today, but she has left her report. I have a motion moved by John Bell and seconded by Doug Hutchison. Be it resolved that the Director of Finance Treasurer be authorized to pay the accounts presented as voucher number 14, 2017 of the Municipality of West Grey in the amount of $974,674.90. Is there any questions, comments on the accounts? Doug?
Find it here for a minute. What page was it on there? Yeah. Okay. It starts a little further up. Okay. I did have some questions, but I'm not sure if we can, Carrie can respond to these, but maybe Brent knows something. I just question about and I didn't write down the page, but there was some vinegar that was bought through the co-op, and turns out it was about $10 plus per liter for this vinegar for weed spraying. And I know at one time Stephen mentioned about using vinegar and maybe salt in the mixture and sort of a more environmentally friendly mix. But I'm just wondering, it was like, I don't know, $2,000 or something. It was a big amount of money that was spent on it. And I'm just wondering if that's really all it is and why it's so expensive, if that's the case. Turns out about $10 a liter is what it was. So, do you know, Brent?
As being stewards of the environment, Councillor Hutchison, that is one of the greenest products available, and it does work. This year has been an exceptional year for rain. Unless you use Roundup, the vinegar isn't quite doing what it had previously done. Anything that was sprayed earlier, I don't know if you noticed, around the countrysides and the rural patrols had done a remarkable job. Again, it's about promoting, our environmental stewardship. If we start using chemicals, we end up having to pay more because the MOE gets involved. We have to post. There's a bunch of things. We can't be involved in the spraying of the Roundup because you have to be certified. You have to have a certified person on staff. That costs money. Health and safety issues. There's a bunch of things that go on and on. A bunch of costs that are hidden that at least with the vinegar, people, when they see that, because it avoids a lot of phone calls coming in to our office with that sort of thing. If they know it's vinegar, they know it's an environmentally friendly product.
I think it's a good idea. I'm not against it. I just thought, is that like where we normally buy it through the co-op, and that's sort of standard cost? It seemed expensive, but if that's what it is, that's what it is.
The product that we use is called Munger vinegar, and co-op are the distributors of that product. So,
okay.
And it's handy that it can be delivered right here into Durham, and for us to go pick it up. So
Right.
it makes it.
Okay, I didn't realize, because I thought he was just making up his own mixture because, but then he'd need a fair quantity, so yeah, I can see that.
We do add some other things such as salt. Salt is another product when mixed with vinegar, dries out the plant.
Right.
On the leaves and things like that. So again, another environment, without getting too much salt on it, but again, another product that we use to help really deaden the weed or the grass that we're trying to knock down.
That's great. I just question that, but I mean, that's great. I agree. It's environmentally friendly, and that's the route we should go, and works. I had a couple other questions, if I may.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor.
You've got the floor.
Page 69, or page 14 on carries, there's a Normanby Arena insurance claim, and I just curious of what that was. It's $2,542. Durham Marina, oh no, sorry, it says Durham Marina insurance claim. Donnelly Murphy Lawyers. Is that something?
Mr. Mayor, I had a call into Kerry to ask about that one because if it was actually Durham, it should be charged against Durham, not Normanby. And I'm not sure. I don't know the details around it, but it's under Normanby, but it's the lawyers and it's Durham Marina insurance claim. So
So it'll be a,
it should, if it's Durham, it should be against the Durham arena, not the Normanby.
so is it an injury claim maybe? Is that what it was?
Well, we have,
No, I think that was in Durham. I think it's just in the wrong place.
Oh,
There
Okay.
was Donnellys were looking after an incident force, a claim that happened in Durham, and I think it's just got posted to, thanks for picking that up, Doug, and Carol. It should be under the Durham. It was for a function that was held at the hall a little while ago, about a year and a half ago. Okay?
Okay, and page 75, there was a, just curious, Town of Hanover, 50% of cost sharing for southeast bypass, and it's $14,000. Well, can you refresh my memory? We probably discussed that, but I can't remember what that was for the bypass.
That bypass is coming out of it's the EIS, the Environmental Assessment, EA, sorry, EIA, the EA for the extension for services coming into that development land in West Grey, and that roadway that comes from the industrial park or
Right.
on the east side of Hanover out to the drive-in road.
So that's for the environmental study, and it's still ongoing? Is that the full
Yes.
cost, or was it just an ongoing thing?
I'm suspicious that that will be the full cost. I think there might be another one or two bills coming yet.
Okay, so once that's done, then maybe they can move ahead if everything else is ironed out?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
That was part of the, when the agreement was, those lands, when we had that employment lands, that was part of the agreement that was there, that we would split the cost on
Yeah.
where the service road would come across and deliver the infrastructure.
Right, so my follow-up question to that would be then, so it would be nice to get that done because supposedly the new school is going to be built for next year, a year from September 8, 2018. The
Correct.
new high school. I see that as probably being a bus route, would it not become, if that road gets accessible to take them to the
Absolutely, yeah.
other, yeah,
That was
okay.
part of what was taken into account there.
Yeah, get them off the highway.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the landowner is fully aware of that they were kept up to date on that project and signed off on it. And that was one of the requirements, was to do an
Okay.
environmental study.
I have one other, but Carol has a question, so I'll find my other question here.
Okay. Carol? Go ahead.
that was my question. Has the landowner signed off or signed an agreement in terms of this study and also the road?
Yes.
So that's all settled with the
that was-
Magwoods?
Yep,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
And that was part of their requirement or request when, as you know, there was an appeal or an OMB hearing on that.
Yes.
And part of the minutes of settlement was there will be a road go in, but there has to be an environmental assessment. And I don't know whether it was class 1 or class 2,
Have they,
but they agreed and signed off.
and have they agreed to the location of the road?
That I cannot, I think part of the environmental and the assessment is where the road should be to get maximum effect for the properties to be serviced and to be able to run the services
For
out
the
there.
farm, because I know there was some disagreement as to where that road
Yep, they
should
were.
run. The Magwoods wanted it farther, whatever way that is,
And
south.
that would allow them, the environmental assessment will allow, there needs to be a lot of discussion with the property owner,
Okay,
yeah,
thanks.
through that process. Rebecca?
Just continuing on the same line, the road, after it's put in, do we have an ongoing cost-sharing agreement for maintenance of everything on the road and under the road?
Not as, I don't believe that we do, no. I know that I'm almost positive that there's nothing in writing. There's kind of in principle, you know, that we would work that out once the road was going to be, or prior to it being built.
Are you undergoing the negotiations with Hanover on that?
No, there has been no discussion until the EA. I mean, if the EA comes up,
Sure.
it's one of those chicken and the egg. The EA comes up, you can't build a road,
There's nothing to talk about.
there's nothing to talk about. So.
Okay.
Carol?
Well, I just wanted to say, as far as the underground for the services, that should be Hanover, since they'll be receiving the revenues, right? Like the water and sewer
Yep.
that's being
That was-
delivered, they are going to get the revenues, so there shouldn't be any cost sharing for us with the,
No, it's...
With the
it's
services.
their delivery of service,
yeah.
exactly.
But
Yeah.
probably the road is ours, because
And
it's
the road's
West
in
Gray.
West Gray.
Yeah, yeah.
We should maybe have that formalized.
At some point in time, absolutely, it would, yeah. I don't think we're just there yet. Doug?
One more item. On page 80, under Durham Parks, there's a charge for Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority washroom, second quarter water sewer usage, and it's $328. And I just wondered, that would be at the Middle Dam, right?
Yes.
So that charge seemed high, considering the soccer club was charged $348, and that would, presume, include some watering and whatnot. Like, it seems to be really high if it's just for one washroom. Is there like a tap running or something that would be that high? Seems really high.
Looking towards Brent, I don't know.
Could you leave that with me and I'll check with Steve?
Yeah, like if you look at, just compared to some of the other ones that I looked at, it just seemed to be quite high, and I just wondered if that's just that washroom. Like, there's only 2 units in there that I know of that use water and sinks. So unless
I don't
they
think there's
change, unless they
shower
put
facilities.
showers and stuff
I
in,
don't think that there is.
you know? So anyways, I just wondered what that was.
Okay, we'll have staff look at that one. Any other questions? Mr. Bell?
Thanks, Mr.
John?
Mayor. Real quick, this is probably directed towards Brent. Brent, the bridge repairs, Bridge 50 and Bridge 54, they're all completed, and this is the complete bill for them?
Yes,
One's
yes,
at
sir.
123,000, the other one's 200. And so that's all said, all done, and they are complete?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they were slightly, I had acknowledged at the previous meeting that each one were slightly over just because there was unknown things that came up, but modest, not,
I saw that, so there, yeah, there's nothing else coming in. That's all we need to know, so thank you.
Within the contingency.
Yes.
Rebecca?
Thank you.
Along those same lines, I was just going to note that 2 bridges were fixed up for the cost of $323,977.74. 2 bridges were. That's it, just noting.
That's what it costs to do a small bit of work on them. Carol?
I just, and I don't know this, and I should, the upper dam, the pavilion, is that septic or sewer? I don't know if the sewer line runs under the dam or not.
I'm pretty sure it's septic.
Septic, okay, because I was thinking that might explain why the high cost. And you do realize that comes into the Durham water, like this one for the thing, because that's, yeah. And I just wanted to say, Mr. Mayor, kudos to the county, the way they fixed up the bridge on Lambton Street. It looks really good. Done a good job. Yeah.
Okay. I will relay those sentiments tomorrow when we're at county. And if I forget, the deputy mayor will jump in for me. Bridge group, yeah. Give Pat kudos. Any other questions on the accounts? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried.
Can I just ask one question on that? Sorry.
Yes? Anything further?
They were working on, like in front of Vickers Park, the county this morning. They had a truck there and cones up and, oh, Brent, thank you.
They are preparing, they're doing some core drilling on that street in preparation for the work that we're planning on doing next year.
Next year.
So that company is in to do core samples of the road to determine the depth of asphalt and the granular material below to see if it's going to,
Road base.
before we spend all that money, we want to make sure what the material is below. So I would hazard a guess. I saw the circles painted on the road that had the borehole numbers on it. So when you said that, I'm assuming that's what it is.
Just to correct you, that will be the county that will be paying. You used the word we. We will be doing some underground work and whatnot. The county will be doing the paving. Yeah. Shared project. Okay. Is there anything else? Then that moves us down to the Director of Infrastructure and Public Works, Brent. I think we're on page 185. And the first one starting is the ATEL agreement. There is a bylaw there. There was a couple of questions, and I think Brent has done a good job when this was presented before, coming up with those. Does that meet? And Brent, anything further?
I just want to make sure, a couple of councillors had expressed concerns before about the agreement, and after the meeting, the last committee of the whole meeting, I sat down with the Director of Finance and to more or less satisfied some of the councillors were concerned that the water user account or the money wasn't being redirected as funds back to the for the use of the Durham Tower. Ms. Mighton indicated that it would be a simple journal entry that would credit back. So in other words, the current money that we're currently paying internet use for our facility could be redirected back to the water user account. And it keeps it in, the reason why I wanted to keep it like that is because and we're hoping that we can still go with ATEL, but if we go with ATEL and we went back to the method by which council had originally instructed me, we were going to end up paying more. So that's why I wanted to keep it in the same sort of agreement that we had. And she said it's just a simple journal entry that she would do and credit back the water tower account. And it's completely understood as far as the accounting methods. So I just didn't want to get it. We have an ability to have a good thing, and I just didn't want to see us paying more money. That Durham didn't really, West Grey didn't have to pay for it.
So can I ask how much per year will be directed towards the water?
We currently pay $3,400 right now, Councillor Lawrence, so I'm suggesting that is whatever we currently pay on our 3 sheds plus the municipality, the West Grey building, that those funds be redirected back to the, yes.
Excuse me, any other questions on that one? So we're good to go with that. 2, the increased tonnage for Eskerley Farms. Doug?
I'm just curious where this pit is. I'm not familiar. It says South Road, concession 1, South Durham Road.
Yeah, it's going to help. Where is it?
Not the
It comes out close to Gray Road 23 and Glenelg Road 23.
Be the MacArthur pit.
Comes down on an angle.
Oh, okay, MacArthur's, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize the name.
Yes,
Okay.
MacArthur, yeah.
MacArthur pit.
Eskerley's.
Yeah, it's in the Glen. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
on the Glen Road.
Okay.
It's currently a gravel surfaced road. the road supervisor indicated to me that that road's in really good shape, is withstanding that the truck traffic is not having to do abundant maintenance on that road. So the benefit of the increased tonnage, of course, is West Grey gets the demurrage on the levy or the fees. Hopefully they go up, but we will receive extra funds through the increase in the tonnage.
And the haul route on that is specific, they go east. There's nothing that comes west, unless it's for one of those houses that needs gravel on the west or the north of the Glen Road, but it all goes east out to 23.
I apologize, I meant to put the former agreement in with this, and I see that I've accidentally omitted it, but the former agreement specifies the haul route. That's what I wanted to bring to council's attention on that.
Yep. Okay, any other questions on this? Before I get to the motion, there's a motion that we recognize it. I think that's basically what it comes down to for the M&R. Okay. So I have a motion moved by Rob Thompson, seconded by Doug Hutchison. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby does not have any objections to the proposal by Eskerley Farms Limited on part lots 25 to 27, concession 1 SDR, former Township of Glenelg, to increase their current approval annual aggregate extraction from 100,000 tons per year to 250,000 tons per year. And I'm just thinking in the last probably numbers of years, I don't think that they've exceeded half of what their extraction limits are. There hasn't been a lot of, I guess what I'm saying is there hasn't been a lot of activity in that pit. There has been ongoing, but not a whole lot. Any other questions or comments on the motion? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay. Next one is quarterly operations report from Durham and Newstead Water Systems. If you're great at understanding graphs and small numbers, you'll get a lot out of this. I guess one good thing to say is there is positive results in both systems. Brent.
If I could add, Your Worship, one of the things I just want to make sure council understands, there are some minor health and safety issues that I'm going to address with some minor deficiencies within our systems that I'm going to correct. And American Water are very pleased that how promptly we get on top of these deficiencies. We're not looking at a lot of money, but again, health and safety wise, it's imperative that they bring those needs to our attention. We need to address them because it's our liability, not American Water, with respect to some of those health and safety issues.
Fine, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Hutchison. Doug?
Maybe not so much a question as a comment. When you look at the Durham wastewater, this is on page 89, wastewater in April, I guess that's when we had a high volume of rain and whatnot, that the volume per day was very, very high in April compared to May and June. I'm just curious, why wouldn't it be the same in Newstead? They didn't get the water, or was there something to do with this bypass or discharge? I don't know. Like, why they wouldn't get that?
Currently, right now, a lot of the downtown core in Durham, we have a lot of private drain connections from residential units as well as commercial that are tied into the sanitary. Mm-hmm. That is a direct impact on, so when we get rain events, you'll notice there's a spike in the actual amounts. So we're treating rainwater, which is something that we want to move forward with changing. changing a lot of Garifaxa Street in the future is going to minimize that effect, but we still have a lot of residential units in the core of Newstead. And unfortunately, until we go in and reconstruct, a lot of these private drains are still connected to the sanitary systems. And that's one of the things that every municipality has, or a lot of the towns have, that is trying to redirect rainwater leads from the sanitary systems and have them empty out onto the yards or into storm sewers. A lot of, without doing a proper study and a very exhaustive study, it's quite extensive to undertake to determine what homes are on have combination type systems. But again, that's the reason for the large spike in the that you see on the graph.
Right.
John, Deputy Mayor Bell?
Real quick, this goes along with that. I had concern from a downtown merchant in Durham. If and when we do our major construction on Garifaxa, there will be new pipes going in there. His main concern was the connection that would have to go from the pipe into the residence. Who would pay for that, and how would that work? And is there a grant system that we can possibly access for that, or is that 100% on the business owner / home operator?
It's going to depend on a number of things, Councilor or Deputy Mayor Bell. One of them is the fact is there are existing lines that come out of their buildings. If they're needing upgraded, we'll bring the line into the building face. If it's and then they're responsible if they have to do anything beyond that into the house. But right now, I believe the way we're looking at it right now is we're just going to the building phase, and then it's up to them whether or not their condition of their line into their property. If it needs upgrading, that's their responsibility.
Okay, and that answers that then. So 100% on their own property, which is the way it should be, but that piece that could go from the main sewer pipe to the building would be frontage or whatever would be on West Gray then. Okay, thank you for that information. I'll be sure to pass that along.
Thanks. Brent, I mentioned to you that I checked with Ralph Dara, who is our former superintendent in Durham, and you mentioned that the commercial in Durham was combined. He said they were all separated and I gave you the date, and I hope you talked to him, because they are not combined. They were separated when the work was done there, and I can't give you the exact, I think it was in the 80s, but I can't give you the exact date. But your concern, and that's the second time you've mentioned it, he said they are not connected, or they're not combined.
I'm not saying all of them, Councillor Lawrence, I apologize, but there is definitely some parts of Durham that are connected
There may be some residents somewhere, but you mentioned also the commercial Main Street, and they're not. They were separated when
Okay.
the work was done in the 80s.
I just know the existing sanitary system underneath Garifaxa Street is 18 inches in diameter, and 18 inches in diameter. And it was built back in those days for that very reason, as combined to handle the flows of sewage and rainwater. But again, once we go through to, if we get the funding for OSIF, which the project is, application deadline is September 27th of this year, that when we move forward, our hope is to, of course, resize the system accordingly to handle just sewage only, and is going to be changed at that point in time. So, but that's one of the things, Councilor Lawrence, that is our responsibility. We'll be checking into that to review all that stuff moving forward to make sure that the businesses do have private connections and their storm runoff is separate from the sanitary.
As I suggested to you, I again suggest you talk to Ralph Dara. He's got a wonderful memory. He was just a great superintendent, and he can tell you what happened there in the 80s.
I apologize, I just haven't had the opportunity to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Doug?
Yeah, and I'm just wondering if it's worthwhile. At one time, I mentioned that LAS has a program, an insurance program that will cover if you have, we talked about freeze-ups, when we were talking about freeze-ups in the wintertime, a freeze-up, or if you have a sewer issue and it's on your property, they have an insurance program that will cover that cost. And I'm just wondering if we should look into that in a little bit detail, that it might be an opportunity for some of our local businesses to buy that insurance, so that when they get into this digging, if they find out that they have to replace all their pipes in their building, then they're going to have some insurance costs. It's not expensive. It's about $100 for the wastewater or for sewers, and $100 for water or something along that line. But if that end up covering people from a major cost, then I think it's something that we should promote. So we should probably look into that more. It's through LAS. And I know Hamilton has it, some of the cities have it now, and seems to be working, so.
Okay, good point. We'll check up on that. Anything else on that operational report? Okay, great information. Next one, I believe we're down to page 101. And this is Durham Pump Station, the chlorine contact storage tank. We went out for tender on this. And Mark's just given me the resolution. We'll introduce that, and if there's any questions on it, checked out the tenders and everything works out. The recommendation is to accept Cedarwell. I have a motion moved by Carol Lawrence, seconded by Bev Cutting. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby awards tender WG number 17-20 for chlorine contact storage construction at the Durham Pump House number 2 to Cedarwell Excavating Limited for a total cost of $150,697.80 plus HST. Just for any information, we've had 3 very competitive bids by local contractors on this, and I think that we're all within that very close bid, so it was a competitive process. Any further questions or comments for Brent on this one? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay. And the next one is council information, and some pretty good information here, Brent. We did the most of the street lighting, intersection lighting, changed that, Real Term Energy. Worked with them on changing those street lights and the savings that we would have in hydro, and it was projected to be about $48,500, and it's over $53,000, so almost $5,000 more than what the projection price was. So the payback is, payback time was what, 2.3 years or something like that? 2.8? Just 2 point something anyways, wasn't it, or 3? 7. Yeah.
2.6, 2.7 years.
So an extra 5,000, we might be down to 2.5. I don't know, but
Maybe it's just HST.
good return.
It's just HST.
I think the HST was included in there to start with, but anyways, we're looking at, if anything else, we got the savings that was projected, so looks like it was a good thing, and the lighting has been very good. Any other questions, comments on that, on the lighting? Then we'll go down to report number 6, is municipal storage shed. Brent, you want to give us on the tender?
Yeah, Your Worship, of course, very disappointed. I did send it out to 7 builders, and we had discussions before. Disappointed that only one one was received. And, you know, you've got my report in front of you. It's the council's direction as to how they want to proceed with this.
Questions, comments? Doug?
Well,
Councillor
I
Hutchison?
think we should go ahead with it. Brent, I think Brent's got a good plan here. It's a way of getting out of renting a building when we can have one of our own, and I think we have to make some changes to go ahead with it. We have to use some development charges, so be it. I think I'd be all for it. Go ahead.
Okay. Rob?
Yeah, I kind of disagree on that. It's well over budget, and I know everybody's busy right now, and it's hard to get tenders in, but maybe something we could look at in the spring when things aren't as hectic, maybe get it out a little earlier, beginning of the year for tenders, and hopefully just pick up on it. And I know the price, and there's not much you can do about it, unless we look at another design for that building, a Quonset hut or...
Well, it was steel clad, so I don't know. Yep. It was fairly basic for storage area. Any other comments? Rebecca?
I was just going to say,
Councillor
I actually agree with Councillor Thompson on this, that we should just try and look for spring next year, get everything out early, maybe in the winter, maybe January, February, see what softwood lumber, see what the lumber prices are doing and so on in the spring. The only comment that I had on the design was we should do the doors in east facing, so they're not north facing, so wind and weather. But, did you have a comment?
Go ahead,
The
Brent.
original location of the building was east-facing doors. And that was to get, of course, so that the snow and the wind are blowing in there. And the other rationale for the location of the building is it provides the shortest leads for storm, sanitary, and water to the building for the future. Any other location, of course, would cost more money because of the extra length that you would have to run those services. So there's a bit of thought, you know, talking with Steve on location of the building and things. And actually, that is the cleanest area. I think there's some other spots within that grounds that are maybe some hidden elements that from past generation or past activities that have transpired on that property. The location of the building has some governing wells that they've come back in and they've done some testing and they've come back with clean results. So it's a clean area. I don't think there would be any extra hidden fees involved with the actual placing of the building in that location.
Okay. Further, Rebecca?
Yes, the TSA fee, you say, oh, maybe we'll take that out of the quote, but I mean, it's going to cost. Some of those things, you know, instead of them being part of the quote of their work, the scope of the vendor's work, we're saying we'll take those on, but there are still fees for some of those things. So we're not getting away entirely from, you know, the reduction in cost isn't 100% reduction, right? Like it'll have to be found somewhere else. Okay.
All right.
That's it.
Further, Carol?
Well, I think we should go ahead with it, Mr. Mayor. We desperately need storage, and unfortunately, or whatever, we sold Rona where we had it. We've been paying an awful lot of money per month, or per year, per month and per year. I do believe we should go ahead with this.
Okay. Mr. Bell, you have another shot at this one.
Yeah, just
John?
a little one. Brent, I don't have a problem with your plan. I see it's well-researched, and I see you've, shall we say, put pen to paper and probably had to come up with a lot of different scenarios to make this work. The one thing I see you're taking out some windows. And those are windows that on the new building would be on the west side? If the doors are facing east?
Is correct, sir? Yes.
Okay. And I don't know, for the few bucks that windows cost, I'm always a fan of natural light in buildings. I'm not sure if because obviously the way the sun's going to go, I presume those overhead doors would be Would they be glass or what, or
They're
plastic?
the,
Open, same as on
they're
the
semi-transparent.
Same as on the rural shed out in, say, Glenelg
Yes.
and Bennick, they've all got them, okay, the same ones.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's important maybe to have a few windows on the back side of the building, but that's,
Again, I was just looking at ways of trying to trim costs and,
I understand that.
Yeah.
But that would be one thing I would, be willing to have in there, but that's just a minor point. But I'm in favor of of the building. It has been needed for a while and would secure a lot of equipment for winter. And yeah, we get out of paying, what is it, $1,800 a month, so I think that's important, so I'm willing to move on with it.
Okay. Further, Rebecca?
Possibly we could look at reducing the cost of the lease agreement until spring when we could look over a new plan. Same plan, just different costing in the spring. I agree $18,000 is a lot for rent, but isn't it 18,000 a year? Is that
18 grand a year.
18,000 a year, yeah. So, I mean, that is a lot, and we could easily be repaying the building. However, the cost of the building just seems really expensive right at the moment. We built a building this year as well, and the cost that we had last year, it was going to be more this year because of lumber and metal materials. So, anyway.
Okay, Carol?
I just want to say I agree with John on the windows. I think the south side needs it. However, I wonder if it wouldn't be wise to put the windows higher with all the vandalism that goes on. Like they're showing, like they're at, you can reach them where they're shown here. It wouldn't cost any more to put them up higher. Or maybe those, what do you call those windows that go along? They're narrower, but they go right along. What do you call? Transom?
Then these open, am I correct, these open? These windows open?
they're vinyl sliders,
Yeah,
yes.
so you
Yeah.
can't, you need them within some
Okay.
sort of reach, that's why they're,
I thought if we were just concerned about natural light, we may want to put them up higher where they're out of reach of these vandals we have around.
I have to correct it. They don't have to be sliders. I mean, they can be just fixed glass panes, like, that would save costs again if you just have a vinyl clad window. It's not like the windows have to be left open.
no, and you can open a door. You want, if somebody's there and they want air, you just open one of the doors.
You probably don't want sliders because if they have them open, there's a possibility of entry.
Leaving.
Of people entering or gaining entry into the building. So they would be fixed for safety. They'd probably be fixed. So if they're going to get in, they're going to break the window to get in. But having said that, they are on the side that is visible to the Garifaxa Street. So
Most visible access. One of the other options, so, is to,
Put them higher.
it's, that plexiglass or whatever, it's not plexiglass, I can't think of the name of it. Up
Translucent.
Lexinglass or whatever it is, up
Bulletproof.
10. You've been on the police board too long, Bev. Put them at 10 feet off the ground, and then it's, to Councillor Lawrence's less access to vandalism, I guess. There's options there. Anyways, we haven't decided we're even going to build the building yet, so that's coming forward. I do have the motion. It's moved by Doug Hutchison, seconded by John A. Bell. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Garry hereby awards tender WG 1719 for construction of the new Durham Municipal Storage Shed to Dom Construction Limited for a total cost of $135,312 plus HST. Any questions on the motion? Call the question. All those in favor? All those against?
Sorry, did you say you're calling it again?
No, I said against. And are you going to vote twice, Carol? You're still with a positive, okay. All right. So, all those opposed. How about I use the word opposed?
That's better.
2, Rob and Rebecca. Declare that carried. Doug?
More question? Just the question with the roof sheeting, Brent. they're changing it from 3/4 plywood, this is a cost saving, to 2x4 strapping. So they would just use strapping and then what, be steel on the roof on top of that then, without the plywood? Is that the idea?
Yeah, the steel panels would be screwed into the strapping. So the strapping would be spaced probably 18-inch to 24-inch on centers from the bottom of the eave up to the ridge.
Okay. So there's not going to be any insulation factor? Like there'll be insulation in a drop ceiling or something eventually?
Eventually, when the building, yes, there will
Yeah.
be insulation placed, blown insulation placed on top of the rafters.
Yeah.
Because, or once the
Yeah, once the joists get in.
drywall or whatever we put up there, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Brent. I don't think there's anything else at this point in time. Very good. On to the clerk's report. Mark, proposals for the recruitment services. Council had put a consultation selection team or committee together. In the report there, we've met a couple of times, and the recommendation is for the recruitment to Warden Updegrove. I'm going to put the motion on the floor and then we can discuss. I have a motion moved by R. Herget, seconded by Bev Cutting. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby approves the proposal for recruitment services, CAO Director Clerk, by Warden Updegrove in the amount of $22,639.55, inclusive of HST. Okay, and that's a recommendation from the three individuals on the committee. Any questions, discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay. The next one, Mark, is dealing with the property, Mr. and Mrs. Steers, and seeking council direction on making a recommendation to reimburse the building permit fee. Mark, your report.
Yes, you do see the excerpt from March 28th, 2016 Committee of the Whole meeting that Mr. and Mrs. Steers attended as a delegation. I was contacted in the last month by the current chief building official, who I believe had some discussions with Mr. Steers as to the status of this request. And as you see, it didn't seem to be followed up on at this point, so I did indicate the kind of fees that were paid. The current chief building official is saying that a new building permit for a dwelling would have to be applied for because the previous one was revoked. So those are the fees. Of course, the building permit fee was vetted through West Grey, as was the West Grey development charge. Of course, the county Grey development charge was collected by West Grey, but of course sent to the county, so it may be within the possibility of the municipality to perhaps look at a possible reimbursement for the building permit fee and the West Grey development charge fee, but I'm not sure how this council could direct the county on that issue, so I would think Mr. Steers may have to discuss that with the county in terms of a reimbursement or a credit in the future.
Okay. Carol?
The permit, was that for a dwelling or was it for this non-agriculture implement shed? And if it was, is there an implement shed that was built there? And if there is, what happens if there's no building permit for a dwelling? Because that's the only way you can do that.
Well,
The permit I'm referring to was for a single family or detached dwelling. The implement shed, if it's agricultural related, it is permitted.
It says non-agricultural.
That is somewhat problematic. Typically, a non-agricultural implement shed, is an accessory building that is non-farm related isn't typically permitted without a main use being the dwelling.
And is that not the premise that this was allowed, even though it was going to be some years till the building
I would
was?
assume that was connected, that the
Yeah.
thought was that both were going to happen.
So if it's,
Permits were issued.
if the permits are revoked and the money refunded, what happens to the implement shed that's probably sitting there then?
That is a good question. Yeah, could be an issue.
Maybe we should look into that before we take action on this?
Whether or not, because of the circumstances, it's somehow permitted to remain. Sorry.
Okay, Doug?
Well, my thoughts are, if he's given the building permit, and if he's built this building, then, I mean, we gave them the okay to do it, and maybe someday he's going to build a house, was the intent, right? He's not ready to move there yet, so the intent, he is gonna build a house, so I think since we've already given the building permit, how could we go back on that and say, no, you can't, you have to take the building down? Like, that doesn't make sense.
I think the building permit he applied for was for the dwelling though, wasn't it? And on the basis of that, he must have had a permit for the shed too, but,
You would have had the shed, but to be able to build the shed first, you'd have to have a building permit for a residential. So what I'm assuming, and I'm going to say assuming, is that he took both of them out, built the shed, and was going to build the house. I don't know what circumstances, I'm not going to speculate on the circumstances, but is renewed. Yeah. Rebecca?
Is it possible at all to be thinking we want development here, we planned for the development when he took out the building permits, and say that we could grant an extension till the end of this year, and that would be the end of it, not providing for any refund, but just if you needed to do it this year, we could allow for that with the current monies paid.
It doesn't appear that Mr. Steers is looking to construct the dwelling within the next year, though it appears it might be a few years in terms of a time frame. That's something that could be, I guess, communicated or discussed with Mr. Steers to determine exactly his plans again.
We could ask Mr. Steers to come to a future committee meeting and/or be in contact with staff. Have staff trying to contact him and see what his plans are for this. I mean, the whole idea behind and where this came into was years ago, and I will say it, and I witnessed it, was an individual, had a piece of vacant property, wanted to, didn't want to put a house onto it, just was kind of for weekend. So it's a lot cheaper to build a shed for storage. And what happened? You lived in it for, on the weekends and, all that time, put a little bunkie, the next thing you know, there's a washroom facility, and, it's a vacant shed, but people are living in it. That is when the zoning and the province come in and said, and part of it came because of, was there a lot of severances back in the late 70s, 80s in Grey County? Yes. And that's what happened, and individuals, instead of putting houses on them, it was a lot cheaper to get a building permit to put a shed up, and I'm not even certain at some points in time a shed even needed a building permit, and then we're using it as a residential. Hence, we come in with no, if it's a vacant land, you can put a shed on it if there's a residence on there.
Or if they're building.
And then okay, you got to take both of them out, and you've got to build the house within the year. Or have the building extended. And this, in this case, it may have been just slightly over what the intention of the legislation and the policy was. Not saying that there's anything devious, but if we can have staff ask Mark to get back to Stuart and Darlene and find out, can we get this basically in compliance? I think that's our best bet. Certainly like to have these properties, that's what they're there for, and get the use out of it. Okay? Is that direction? Carol?
Well, I just noticed when the extensions of the building permit was 2012 through 2015, I wonder what happened to 2016?
Our CBO left, and I think there was Mr. Marcel and the
Okay,
John Akers was in, said, how much longer can this go on? Sitting there with,
so it was let go on, but nothing paid for 16 then?
nothing for 16, and I doubt
Not yet
very
for
much if there's
17.
anything for 17 either.
Well, we're into still
Yeah,
into 17.
the building permit was revoked by then CBO John Akers after the 2015 extension.
So there wasn't anything to renew, from what I understand.
Correct.
Okay? So let's get some communications with the Steers and see if we can find out where they're going, what's happening, and what would be a resolution. Okay? All right, Mark, the next one then is the Joint Building Services Committee. There was a recommendation from the committee that we're looking for a new vehicle and come back to each council. So I have a motion moved by Doug Hutchison, seconded by John A. Bell. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby approves paying West Grey's approximate share in the amount of $7,484.25 for a 2017 all-wheel drive vehicle for the Joint Building Services Department, representing 25% of the cost of the $29,937.02, including HST. Carol, Councillor Lawrence?
I just have a question. Should we decide to pull out of that joint building service and go on our own again, which I think would not be a bad idea, but is there some kind of mechanism where we would be repaid our share less the depreciation?
I believe that there is, and I haven't reviewed the agreement that we have, the way it's set up, that if somebody did pull out, there would be an understanding of the capital that's there, the assets. There would be a payment back to...
Can we check on that before we pass this?
Yeah, I guess we could. We could delay it until the next meeting. I
think we should be protected that way. I mean, it could happen.
Okay. Before we go to delaying, Rebecca?
I actually agree 100% with Carol where she's going with this. We need to check out an exit strategy. I understand Mr. Bell, Councillor Bell, Deputy Mayor Bell, and Mayor Eccles, you're both on this. I read the report from the last Joint Building Services Committee. It said that we are up to 5 individuals being employed there. Southgate Development, what is the future look like for us remaining part of this joint building services?
Go ahead.
Well, actually, we had to increase the people that was recognized with all the building that is taking place in the different municipalities, that they were going to need another person. Another person has been hired, hence the need for another vehicle. So the Building Services Department is revenue neutral, runs on its own. All right, so this vehicle, yes, does come out of our share. As you read in here, recommends each municipality agrees to fund the remainder from individual municipal building department reserve funds based on the funding agreement in place if required. So it's really not, it's coming out of West Grey's portion of the reserve, but going forward, yeah, we know that we're busy, and we do I can safely say that the building services is very well thought of among the contractors in the area, so hence they are running efficiently, they're running on time, and you just have to ask the contractors. They're very happy with the service, so I'm not sure. I know we're protected. I don't have that agreement in front of me right now, but I mean, we can check on that, but I know that we're covered, so anyway, I don't have
Do
it in
you
front
see
of me.
everything running fine? We're working together well? We have this agreement in place, we're good to go. Future, this vehicle is gonna be run off its wheels because that's how big of an area we cover.
Exactly.
So it's just needed right now and everything's running fine and smoothly.
Everything's running smooth as what we can tell to the last meeting.
Do we-
Everybody's very happy.
Do we foresee any need in the next maybe 5 or 10 years to keep increasing staff?
Well, that's
With
something,
crystal ball or-
yeah, crystal ball, and whether we will be as busy in 5 to 10 years, yes, I think probably we will be. There will be other developments come online. Markdale's got some future Grey Highlands, excuse me, has some future plans. There could conceivably, driving around Dundalk on the parade route that we saw on Saturday, you can see that there's some dead-end streets there that could be extended at some future date, and West Grey definitely has plans also. So, yes, I can see the department being increased, but like I said, everybody seems to be fairly happy with the way it's running right now, especially the contractors. So.
Carol, further?
I think it's something we need to be reviewing, Mr. Mayor, though. For instance, we're looking at, 275, 278 homes being built here, but I hear it's from 800 to 1,000 in Markdale and 400 in Dundalk, like you
I think
heard
it's the other way-
600 in
Other way
Markdale.
around. About 800 to 1,000 in Dundalk and
Oh, Dundalk and
400
Markdale.
in Markdale, yeah.
But anyway, that's,
40
and of
right
that, we're going to be paying 25%, and it's going to probably take more employees. I just think to me, I'd like to see this reviewed when we have a new CAO. I'd really like this agreement to be looked at to see if, in fact, we do save money, and especially it's going to probably need more people for that much building. Just to get a real handle on this, is it good for us or is it not?
Just to make it clear, we're paying 25% right now because of the building. It's on the proportionate of building permits, and that is how the formula of what you pay. Next year, we may pay 35% if development here goes up, or we may pay 10% if Southgate has 1,000 and their requirement goes. So it's a sliding scale, it's not a set 25% every year.
So capital
It's on-
is set. Capital is set.
Capital is set
That's why it's 25%
On-
on the vehicle.
at this time. This is what it is for this year. This is the formula. So we're paying 25% this year. If it was bought next year, maybe it's,
Oh, so it's still
So
on the
the-
sliding scale,
yeah.
capital?
The
yeah.
the capital,
yeah.
because to me, that would require more vehicles if there's that kind of building going on, but,
Exactly, yeah.
so, but we
it's-
would not be at capital 25% on that, then you're saying it's based on the permits?
Yes, it's on the,
Yeah, I'd still like to see the thing reviewed when we have a new CAO, though, just to be
think
sure
it's
it's
always-
working in our favor, or are we better on our own?
it's something new. Councillor Hutchison and then Rebecca.
Just read here that they have a total of 5 inspectors, including the chief building official, and they have, but right now they have 3 vehicles and this will make 4. So I'm curious, is one inspector walking, or how do they do that when they have 4 vehicles and 5
Go
inspectors?
ahead, John.
One inspector is usually always at the office to answer inquiries, or is working out of the office, or in particular case of West Grey, there is somebody in the office here 2 days a week. Okay? And sometimes that individual, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Mayor, brings his personal vehicle here before he goes to Markdale.
And that's how they're covering it off right now. Chief building official's using his own truck, which gets into insurance, and he gets paid mileage, but on working on company time and whatnot, being on work sites, he's got a bit of, concern with his own, doing his own vehicle. And we pay, some, but, going to the bank or something of that nature. But when you're on work sites and whatnot with your own vehicle, yeah,
Well, that's what I was
on a
thinking.
constant basis,
I was
it's a
thinking
bit
that's
difficult.
probably should be looking at it, everybody have their own vehicle. Eventually, it would make sense.
Well,
Especially they're
or
on
the
and off
fleet.
the job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
have enough in the fleet that, you know, it's not your own vehicle, but you have a vehicle to take to get to work. Rebecca?
Just going to ask about the joint building services agreement that we have. Building permit, that's how the sliding scale goes. Is it on the number of building permits or the value of the building permits?
I believe that it's a combination. I'd have to really look at it, but my understanding of it, it's the number and the value, and there's a formula there on that. Carol?
I just need somebody to help my memory. What did we do with our building department truck? Did it go over there, or did it stay here and go to Public Works? Because we had bought a truck before Brian left.
No, it's went to Public Works. It was
Okay.
used for a short period of time, I believe, in there, and now it's back. No, it's here, yeah. Yeah. I think in the first 6 months or something until vehicles were bought, I think it's 6, might have been 8, that it was used by the Joint Building Committee. And then they had, I know we purchased at least 2 vehicles in that meantime, and then that truck was redeployed back to West Gray. And I'm pretty sure it's in the Durham Patrol. Okay? Any other questions? So I have a motion on the floor. There's nothing else.
Will we defer it to look at the funding agreement?
Well, unless somebody puts that forward,
I would so
getting
move.
close to calling the question. Okay?
I would so move that the motion be tabled until we have the information.
Very good. Have a seconder?
Information requested.
Yeah. Seconded by Rebecca. So I have a motion moved by Carol Lawrence, seconded by Rebecca Hergert. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Gray hereby tables resolution number 290-17. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion's lost. All right.
The motion's lost because you voted against it? You didn't declare one way or the other.
It was a tie vote, and I voted against it, yes.
You didn't declare it. So I
No,
just asked
sorry.
to be sure.
I counted. All right, the motion is back on the floor, moved by Doug Hutchison, seconded by John A. Bell. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Gray hereby approves paying the West Gray's appropriate share in the amount of $7,484.25, excuse me, for a 2017 all-wheel drive vehicle for the Joint Building Services Department, representing 25% of the total cost of $29,937.02, including HST.
Request a recorded vote, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? Mark, I'll ask you to take the vote. Oh, sorry, Doug.
Just a comment. I agree that I think we should revisit the agreement we have, as Carol had said, Councillor Lawrence, just to, especially maybe once we get our new CAO to sit down and go over it. I think it's always a good plan to renew and take a look at it, but I think at this point, they need the vehicle. I think we should go ahead and get it done, but there'll be an opportunity to revisit the plan and take a look at it. So I'm not against that part.
Okay. Mark. Bev?
Yeah, you can revisit the plan and see whether it's good for the actual department to be used that way, but what was requested was that the agreement be looked at to see what would happen with the things that we're purchasing. Is there an exit clause that we actually get some money back or things like that? That's all we're asking for, is to wait for a week to see whether that exit clause allows us to get our $10,000 back. And I think that's very pertinent for this, for council to do, to see that we have something in that agreement which allows us, if we decide to withdraw, that money comes back.
I know the bylaw number, I can get it.
Okay. Mark, no further questions. Please take the...
Deputy Mayor Bell,
Yes.
Councillor Cutting, Mayor Eccles.
Yes.
Councillor Hergert.
No.
Councillor Hutchison. Councillor Lawrence. Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
4-3.
Vote carries 4-3. We will ask Mark to find that bylaw that we struck her the agreement, and then at a later date, follow up one of the duties on how that partnership is working. I do know that there's a minimum of a calendar year, I believe is what it is, of notice. So, and I think it is at the end of the year you can give notice, not partway through. It's not as you give notice in June and you can get out next June. It's not 12 months. I think it's a calendar year. So you're in until December 31st. You can give notice and you will be out at, it was this year, out at the end of 2018. If memory serves me right. Okay. Mark, what's the next one you've got here?
Yes, I did provide an addendum report on the
Election.
proposed bylaw number 79 of 2017 to enter into a license agreement with the Dominion Voting Systems Corporation for the purposes of the electronic voting, internet and telephone. As noted in my report, the lower tier Grey County clerks, 8 out of 9 at least, are going with internet and telephone voting, and the ones that are going with internet and telephone voting, I'm fairly certain that they have all entered into or have agreed to go with Dominion Voting for their election services. So, and that is again to facilitate some efficiencies in terms of some cost savings and advertising and training. So basically it's a pooling of the resources to make it efficiencies and make it easier for us to converse from one clerk to another and provide similar procedures and training, as I mentioned, to facilitate this new means of voting in the 2018 municipal and school board elections. So if there's any questions, I'll certainly try to answer them.
Any questions on this? Councillor Hutchison. Doug?
Yeah, just a question, Mark. What areas, what municipalities are using Dominion? Dominion seems to be the company, right, that you're talking about?
So Dominion is one of the preeminent suppliers of electronic voting, certainly in North America, and certainly a large presence in Canada and Ontario. So in Grey County, it's all local municipalities other than Chatsworth. Chatsworth Council decided to retain the vote by mail, but all the other 8 municipalities, I guess including ours, are going internet and telephone voting, and all of those, save and except at this point, West Grey are using the services of Dominion Voting.
I think, is that the question, or were you asking, is there other, okay. Any other questions, comments on this addendum? On the bylaw that's presented? Go ahead, Doug.
In here, Mark, it talks about a project manager. Would that be yourself? Like they have a project manager and then we would have a project manager?
Yeah, I believe they will establish a project manager, and obviously as the clerk and returning officer, I will be the main contact person.
Okay.
Rebecca?
So
Councillor
if
Herget?
we go to exhibit...
So if you turn on that microphone, everybody can hear you.
Okay. So on page 169, Exhibit A, it shows that the data will be retained for how many years? This is 1.3 in Exhibit A. Do you know how many years we'll be retaining data? I can't quite get there yet. 169 is the page.
It'd be in accordance with the Municipal Elections Act in the retention. Most are 1 year, or sorry, 90 days, except for financial statements, which are the term of council, basically.
Okay, so then 1.4BB.1 provides for 2 locations, 2 physical locations. So we would have a main office here for elections, and then there would be 2 physical locations, co-locations as they're called. Is that correct?
The main location will be this office. We will have what are called help centers, which we will determine in our procedures manual. For instance, we'll probably have one certainly at Rockwood Terrace, and then we'll discern from there whether or not we have, maybe not a help center, but we're going to look at, obviously, for instance, libraries with computers, talking to some of the library staff, see if we can at least give them some fundamental review of how the system will work so that they can somewhat guide individuals that go there and want to vote by computer there.
Okay. Then, list of eligible voters, when will they need to be registered by? Do we have a date for that?
Ooh, I don't have the date offhand, sorry.
on this?
There have been
Okay.
some changes, quite a few changes to the Elections Act and different timeframes, such as the nomination period changing from basically the first day of January, or second day of January now to, I think it's late July. So there's been quite a few changes, so I don't have that outright, but it will be, the voting period is basically from, I believe it's October 12th to 28th or 26th, something like that, 28th.
12th to 22nd?
Yeah, 22nd, right.
How many employees would we have on the training? And then it says training will be 1 unit. Does that equate to hours of time with the different specialties?
There'll be a one training session. We'll probably have a joint training session with all the municipalities involved with internet and telephone voting. We'll have certainly our Director of Finance will be involved. Certainly Eunice Henning as our administrative assistant. She's been involved in the past, and hope to have her there to be as well involved. We're hoping that we can, as opposed to in the past, in the manual voting system, having to hire 70 election staff, we're hoping we can do it within our present staffing levels. We're hoping to.
Okay. So this 1.5 though, it says provide 1 unit of customer employee training. Unit is not very clearly defined there.
Yeah.
And if you go and you look down at the cost of each of these programmers and so on,
Yes.
it looks like the cost could add up very quickly.
No, there'll be one training session. I did take note of the cost of their staff. I guess if somebody wanted to be there on election day, if they wanted an actual Dominion voting staff presence there on election day, they would pay for it. Yes, it would be nice for somebody from Dominion to be there, hold my hand through the process. I don't think I won't be requiring that. I don't anticipate that. And I don't anticipate requiring any additional staffing.
And then there's a number 3 we go to, and it talks about the logic and accuracy testing and making sure that we have an auditor present at the testing stage.
Yeah, I think we'll discuss that. I'm not sure if we will actually be incorporating an auditor for that, but we will be having that discussion ongoing with the Grey County clerks, and we'll determine exactly what that best procedure is.
Looks like there might be an additional cost to having the auditor present. So
Well, if we have our own auditor, certainly there would be a cost. I'm not sure if that will be warranted, but that's something in there if needed.
I would like it to be included. The only reason I say that is there's some misspellings even in the contract that if we need to just double check and make sure that we have a test run to make sure that the accounting part of it is accurate. I think an auditor would be warranted.
I can have that discussion with the fellow clerks, and if I can certainly bring that back for discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Bev?
Read through this, not 100% extensively, wondering if there is any sort of clause in here which allows for a rebate if it screws up. It has misfired and not been correct, and there's been a lot of frustrations. I know that's in past years, but if for some reason this system, we have a whole bunch of electors that are angry, do we have the right somewhere to either pull back or demand a reimbursement or?
Yeah, it may not be certainly in the contract, but unless I missed
There
that.
is something in here, it's limited to the amount that we're
Limited.
paying. So
Right.
the 22,639. That's
So, but how?
And of course, there's
how do you
always
get that back?
court, there's also legal action that could be taken too, if council deems it
I guess if there's
appropriate.
8 of 9 of us going together, that would be a class action.
Guess it would be class action, yeah. But it would be illegal, probably a challenge. Carol?
Thank you. To Mark, how will Rockwood Terrace be handled?
Again, that's what we'll have to establish in the procedures, but sometime during that voting period, we'll probably have some, well, before then, we'll have some discussions with Rockwood staff, see what they feel would be appropriate in terms of a day that would be most convenient and the best time, maybe time frame for us to bring a computer or computers to that station, and then provide the opportunity for Rockwood Terrace staff.
Well,
At that particular time, obviously, they have any other opportunity by telephone or computer to vote, but we'd have a specific time and date where we would go and make computers available for individuals that probably say after lunch or something.
Okay, but my point is, a lot of those people either don't have the knowledge or
Yeah.
aren't physically capable of using a
Correct.
computer, so where does the secrecy come in?
They do have friends of the electors that can assist with their voting.
That is allowed.
So if they do, yes, certainly, and as in past elections, there is provision for a friend of an elector to assist with voting.
Rebecca?
Just one further question. Anyone that would be shut in or something like that, would you allow a time to go meet at their location? I know in the past elections, and maybe if they were in town or something, send a couple representatives over, but
No, I wouldn't foresee going to an individual residence to facilitate that. Again, the telephone, hopefully they have a telephone at least, if not a computer, but there are opportunities in that time frame if there's a relative or, again, but that would be rather difficult to provide resources to go to individual residences. That would be a little difficult, I would say.
Doug?
There might be an opportunity to set up a station at the library, for example.
Exactly,
Right?
yeah.
That people can go access
Yeah.
there if they need to.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a great system. Just a question, Mark, about pricing. Like it mentions here $1.65 for every elector, like it's based on the number of electors in the
Yes.
vote. They come up with a number of 11,400 eligible electors. Not sure where that came from.
That came from me. That was the number of eligible electors in the 2000 West Grey municipal election. So I provided that
Oh, was that right?
figure to them, yes.
Because I thought our population was 12,500.
That's electors, though.
Sorry?
The children aren't qualified electors.
Our
No, I know,
population
but
is
so-
12,000, but what it would be, that's on permanent residents? The 11,400 would
Can
be
be-
property owners that some live in Australia.
But it certainly doesn't
Yeah.
include children
Yeah.
which aren't eligible electors, so.
But it's,
So then, yeah, if it increases the number of eligible electors in 2018, the fee will be somewhat larger. If it's reduced, it would be somewhat smaller.
okay. Carol?
Mark, a lot of people don't have landlines anymore, they just have cell phone. Can you vote
Yes,
from a cell phone?
Dominion has indicated that you can vote through by cell phone.
Okay. So the only thing you can't vote telephone is if you have a rotary dial,
Correct.
which I have to tell you, there are a few.
There's a few. There's a few. No. There's still a few apparently out there, but again, we will have opportunity. Maybe they can phone a friend or go to a neighbor or a relative and facilitate voting there. They can come to a help center. They can come to the municipal office, the libraries, or accessing a computer. So we're going to try to make it, certainly as accessible as possible. That's certainly one of the, I think, the main features of the internet telephone voting. It is more accessible, hopefully more convenient for individuals rather than physically having to attend a voting location.
On a day.
Yeah, on a
Bev?
given day.
We were at one point going to set up sort of clinics to help people, like have one here where there's a certain time, and if you're not sure what you're doing, you can come in, somebody will guide you, and then you can go and vote, like a pre-polling station sort of thing. Are we still considering that, or?
Yeah, that's another thing the clerks are working on. Even we may have joint sessions like that could, obviously promote and educate the ratepayers on the use of internet and telephone voting. So that's something we're going through even now. We've got most of our procedural manual done. Thankfully, you know, the municipality of Meaford had gone through the process already, so, but there have been, as I say, quite a few changes in the Elections Act in terms of the dates. So we're going to be working on that. We have another meeting later in September, and that'll be the main focus of that meeting and a few other ones. So we will be working, then individually we have to look at, determine where the help centers are going to be and what days. But we really have stressed the need for advertising and communication. So we're really going to work hard on that. And I think collectively that will provide, I think, some savings there and also promote more widespread advertising and affordable advertising through the pooling of our financial resources.
Carol?
If I might, back to Bev's question, though, and I was of that understanding too. I thought we were going to have a specific day here, that people could come here and be guided and use a computer to
Yes,
vote. Like,
as I
not,
say-
you're talking just education
No.
of the voters, but this
That'll
is-
be a help center, and we do anticipate having that probably a number of days here at the office, just like an advance vote that we've had at
Right.
the office, but it'll be with computers.
so they
and-
can come here.
Yes.
So if there's a problem, they don't have a
Correct.
computer or don't know how to
Yes.
use them,
Yeah.
or the phone.
We'll have a number of days,
There's an
I'm
opportunity.
sure, that we'll schedule.
Yeah, I can see people coming here.
Yes.
More so than the library or
Exactly,
a neighbor.
just like an advanced voting day in the manual system, but it'll be using computers if people don't have access or if they need some assistance.
Yep. Okay.
We might have high speed soon with HF,
We may have high speed here with ATEL, but yeah. It's not out in the valleys of Glenelg on 23. She's not listening. Okay, any other questions for Mark? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mark. I think then we're down to bylaws.
76 should be concession B, not 8. So
I'll let you. I'll let you hand out those resolutions, Mark, for the bylaws. And I believe we have 5 bylaws on today. '76. Okay, I have bylaw number 76, which is recommended by the planning department, or planning committee. Have a motion moved by John A. Bell, seconded by Rob Thompson. Be it resolved that bylaw number 76, 2017, being a bylaw to establish a site plan control area on lands described as concession B, part lot 75, RP 17R531, part 1, former township of Normanby, Marvin Martin, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, be engrossed in the bylaw book. Mark, 1 point.
So it was a while ago, but Marvin Martin did apply for a zoning bylaw amendment for a paint blasting business in Normanby. And this site plan control is to make that a site plan agreement is required, and that was some direction from the planning committee at that time. So actually, for the August 17th committee of the whole planning meeting, we do have both Mr. Martin's zoning bylaw amendment coming back for further consideration by the planning committee, as well as the site plan agreement that has already been vetted through the solicitor, the Conservation Authority, and we're just awaiting final comments from the Ministry of Transportation. So this is just to make sure that site plan agreement is required.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. Out on 89, just off 89 highway there. Okay, any other questions or comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried.
What is 77?
77 gets here.
77 or 79.
Yep, I got 78. Okay, get those. Bylaw number 77. An appointment. I have a motion moved by Carol Lawrence, seconded by Bev Cutting. Be it resolved that bylaw number 77, 2017, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 64, 2017, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Any questions or comments on this bylaw? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Bylaw number 78, staying into a bylaw with ATEL Networks to supply high-speed internet. I have a motion moved by Doug Hutchison, seconded by John A. Bell. Be it resolved that bylaw number 78, 2017, being a bylaw to enter into a license of occupation agreement between the Municipality of West Grey and ATEL Networks, Inc., be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Any further questions? Councillor Lawrence. Carol?
I guess it's not exactly about this bylaw, but will we be passing a bylaw that states about the change in allocating the monies that was being paid for internet will go to the water report? Like, I mean, we've said that, but we need to have somewhere, we have to have record of that.
Whether it's through a resolution or...
Probably be a bylaw, wouldn't it?
Bylaw.
I'll discuss that with the Director of Finance. I believe the Director of Infrastructure has spoken to Carrie, but
Yes.
she's on vacation this week, so...
Okay, so we'll have
get
that.
something back to...
We'll have that
Council.
coming back soon?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
You got a report. Okay. Any other questions on? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Mark. And number 79 is a bylaw concerning the election services software and licensing agreement. I have a motion moved by R. Hergert, seconded by Carol Lawrence. Be it resolved that bylaw number 79, 2017, being a bylaw to enter into an election services and software license agreement between Dominion Voting Systems Corporation and the Municipality of West Grey, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed as amended and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Comments? Mark?
I just noted it as amended because they had the, an address, West Grey, Ontario. I'm just going to have them change it to Durham, Ontario. So,
Very good. Any other comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That one's carried. And the last one is the affirming bylaw, number 80. I have a motion moved by Rob Thompson, seconded by Doug Hutchison. Be it resolved that bylaw number 80, 2017, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the August 9th, 2017 council meeting, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Any questions or comments on this? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. All right. New business. Addendums, notice of motions. Don't think there's any requirement for a closed session. Question period. At this point, if there's anyone in the audience that has a question on anything that was on the agenda, this is the time. You've got a couple of minutes.
Well, I had a conversation, Mark. I wanted to have a discussion with council, not pertaining to some of the council meetings today. And I've been suggested I be here at 10:15 this morning to talk to council, and it's now.
what? Sorry, what was this for? Which?
Bill Bishop, when we spoke, a month and a half.
Because I had you down for a previous council meeting.
You had me down for this one, 10:15.
I had you down for a committee of the whole meeting on July 31st.
You know, I said I couldn't make that one outside.
Okay, that's my apologies. I don't see any issue.
That's why
I think we're good.
stayed.
Okay.
I took the morning off.
My apologies.
Okay, well, we certainly, I know you were on the on the agenda for the 31st. We did miss you and didn't have anything at that point in time. With the indulgence, committees or council saying yes, I'll entertain that now, Mr. Bishop.
That side button.
Yep,
Yeah,
use the
side
podium
button
and
will be
that way Adam can,
I don't think that's on.
is that
I don't think I turned it on.
microphone, should be,
Oh,
yep,
good.
it's
Okay,
it's on and live.
Okay, as a
Floor is
tax,
yours.
okay, as a taxpayer, I have a few issues. One of the things, I moved to Glen Elg and Townsend Lake Road area back in 2011, and I've noticed my taxes have gone up from $2,100 to $5,700 now. I'm concerned about municipal services, police services. We don't receive hardly anything over there. I have to call to have the road plowed, call to have it graded, Townsend Lake, especially one where it meets Glen Elg, Holland Town Line. You try to drive up that hill at any time of the year, it's not great. Right now, it's pretty rough. The garbage truck couldn't get up and pick up our garbage one time this winter. When I was building my new storage shed, I had to plow the road myself with my tractor to get the tractor trailer up, to get the trusses up the hill. And I've called police service on a couple of issues, and they just said, well, I should go talk to the person. I'm used to live in Toronto. We don't go talk to people if we need to call police services, because I'm pretty concerned about that, because you never know what people will do in Toronto, because most people carry guns now down there. And I moved up here because I wanted to change my lifestyle, and I'm really happy living here. But I'm very concerned about paying exorbitant taxes and not receiving the municipal services that I feel I pay for. We do pay for our garbage, and that's a concern of mine. That's quite an increase. I improved my property, yes, and I go through the proper channels, get building permits, because I used to build in Toronto, and I know that building permits are crucial and you do things the proper way, but I feel I get penalized by impact, and then due to impact coming to you folks, your tax base is higher than Clearview Township, because I work installing appliances now, and I'm over Clearview Township. My guy's got more property and building that's worth way more, and he only pays $2,300 a year, because I specifically asked him, and his building's worth a lot more than mine. And I just really find it frustrating that I do have to call for municipal services. My wife drives school bus now, because we changed our lifestyle, and she finds that she drives all over West Grey and drives into Hanover on the dirt roads and stuff, because she drives the rural runs. And the roads over in this area are better maintained than in Glen Elg. And I've talked to Tim. I think it's Tim, the road supervisor over there.
Correct.
He's a nice gentleman, but I don't think right now at this point in time he's grading the roads well enough. And 2 years ago, I never got water from the road onto my property. And part of my building permit requirements when I did the addition, I had to pay Al Thompson Excavating to come in and regrade my property over $15,000 to make sure I didn't get water in my buildings and stuff like that, because Brian Marcel at the time suggested I do that. And so I did that. And I also paid, when I built my new storage shed, regrading, and Gary Kinsman from Priceville to redirect my water away from my driveways. But now all the water from the road comes down my hill and tears out my driveway. I spent probably 15 times this year collecting and regrading my driveway because all the water from the road comes down. I've paid pretty close to $20,000 in the last 3 years on my property to regrade my own water so it goes into the field and down the hill. But now all the water from the road comes down and tears up my driveway. And I've regraded myself because I do have a tractor, but it's getting pretty frustrating as a citizen and paying this kind of taxes. When I lived in Toronto, my house was valued way more than that, and I paid less taxes.
Yes, and that's because there's an agreement between the Ontario government and Impact that they still stay with 1940 assessed prices. And one thing that is a tremendous angst to me is that in the last 10 years, there's been over $1 billion of provincial tax money go in to balance Toronto's budget because Toronto refuses to go to, market value assessment and tax.
Well,
And
I-
I've heard that many times, and that's my problem. We balance our budget out here because the province wants to do whatever they want to do with Toronto. Then they balance Toronto's, offset the tax revenue deficit down there.
No, I understand that. but
Anyways, but
my
just my
impact value on my
frustration.
house in Toronto was 700,000, and I paid on the 700,000, and I paid less tax.
I'm not saying that it's the assessed value. I'm saying it's 1940 where their tax, where their mill rate is, I guess to say.
Yeah.
They've never bumped that up, and that's what I hear an awful lot. Now, do they have a tremendous amount more, assessment and all of that? But politically, they have not moved to balance their budget, where the rest of us, because we are small, we get beaten up by the province to balance our budgets, and which we have. Your assessment, I believe that the tax rate in West Grey over the last 5 years cumulatively has been somewhere in the neighborhood of 10%, a little over 2% per year increase. So your increase in taxes has been on assessment value increase that's more than doubled. It certainly isn't on the tax rate increase by West Grey. It's been on your development on your property that's been recognized, as you said, by impact.
Yeah, but you have to understand, if you're paying this kind of taxes, I should get services. I don't want to call police services and then say I should go talk to the next door neighbor. I can give you my example. One time I thought somebody was stealing something off the property, and the constable that answered the phone said that I should go talk to the person. But I'm not, if I think somebody's stealing something, why should I go talk to them? Because it's something that you don't feel secure as a person to do. Would you walk up, if you may see somebody committing a crime, I know that I used to live in Toronto, and you don't go talk to people that you see committing a crime. You call because they could have a gun. And you're still nervous about that. And one other time, the next door neighbor was shooting all night long, and I called and they said, well, they're allowed to target practice if they want. And they didn't come. So that's an issue for me, is if I'm paying that kind of money, that I should be able to have municipal services. Like, when am I going to get my road graded properly, that I don't get the water to wash out my driveway?
That one we can have a discussion, and I wish that the Director of Public Works was here. We'll take a look at that. As you know, this year,
I understand the rain.
It has been a problem. And in Glenelg, as your wife said, when you get to Bentig, yeah, there are some hills in Bentig. You get to Normanby, there are some hills. Nothing like there is in Glenelg. And on the gravel roads, the washouts, it's just been more difficult for us at any point in time. In my memory of being able to keep the roads in the shape that, that they need to be. There are a number of roads in Glenelg that are as good as any place else in West Grey and as good as any place in Grey County. But once you get from Townsend Lake to Markdale, the road structure and the hills, this year it's been next to impossible to keep them. But we will see if there is, in that case, and we've doing some work. This year's elevated the acknowledgement that our ditching needs to be improved, and that, from what I'm hearing on yours, that's a good possibility of what it is. Do we get some ditching work? What's the possibility of getting ditching work done there and being able to direct and keep that water off of your property, off your driveway, and down through the ditch and to where it, I'm not going to say exits into Townsend Lake, but where it should be going
Well, it
and
would
not
be
going
exiting
down.
down on the town line because of Glen Colin, because I'm at the north end. I'm at Glen Colin Town Line and Townsend Lake Road.
Yep.
And but given the fact is, in 2011, 2012, and 2013, we had great snowplow service. The guy was there before 6:30 every morning, and stuff like that, but now they don't come. As a taxpayer, I have to pay my taxes, I have to go out to work. And if I can't get out, if the school buses are canceled, I totally understand. We live on a school bus route, my wife drives a school bus, and the school bus comes up and picks up people. And they always plow those roads first, so if the schools are canceled, then I understand that I'm going to have problems getting out if you guys can't come plow. But if the schools are open, she has to get down, and one night I had to use a tractor to clear the hill so she could get up the hill. Like, that's like, you know, that's where the rubber meets the road for me. If I was paying back at the $2,100 taxes a year, I know they've assessed my value, but I know people in the area, they build decks and do whatever they do without permits. I've seen it happen, and no permits, the signs that are supposed to be posted, and there's no enforcement on them, and then they don't have to pay extra taxes, because when you improve your property, you're getting punished, is the way I look at it, because I like to keep a nice property and keep it very groomed and looking nice. But the problem is, I don't think it's fair at this point in time, and to get a tax bill from you folks at $800 backdated taxes for this year, that I have to now come up with an additional cost because you guys didn't. My building permit was cleared on my shop last January, not this January, but the past January, and then you said because of reassessment, they've assessed the shop at $75,000. It only cost me $54 to build it, and now they want me to pay the $800 back, and I've had to pay it because I don't want to be in arrears with taxes. But that puts a very steep stress on me this year because it wasn't part of my budget.
Two things of knowledge. We only bill when impact gives us, and sometimes there is a delay in that when you've built and it's not recognized on your tax bill, on the assessment, and that's a catch-up. I will say, probably something you don't want to hear, you're lucky. 4 or 5 years ago, before impact really jumped onto it, there was a lot of people out there that had built houses and they were 3 years in arrears. They hadn't paid taxes, and they didn't, you know, I'm just, all of a sudden they didn't pay, and then there was a catch-up, so it was 3 years. We have pushed impact, and impact now was within 12 months, give or take. We can't bill it until they put it onto the assessment. The other aspect, if you've only put $55,000 into a building and impact has got it at $75,000, there is an appeal process.
Well, I've already gone through all the appeals. Now I have to pay money to go to court or whatever, the $125 per roll number, because impact is not going to back down at all at this point in time. So now I have to go to the provincial appeals thing. I've got the paperwork at home.
Very good.
But the question would be, if I win the appeal, then do I get my taxes back that I paid?
Yes. Yes.
But you have to understand, there's a services that, you know, when, like, I don't get the type of services that Durham would get, and we're still part of West Grey. You have to understand that, like, and relatively speaking, if, like, I don't want to be rude or anything, but relatively speaking, if you're paying that kind of tax, you should be able to get the services that you require out there. Like, we're in a rural area. You're talking about internet, we can't even get the internet. We've had 3 service providers in, and because of the tower situation, we couldn't get the signal at this point in time. And so that's pretty frustrating. We have to tether off our phones to have any source of internet at this point in time. So.
Same here.
Yeah.
And
I think that's an issue for the federal government, because Bell Canada should be doing it, because Bell Canada got the subsidy from the federal government years ago.
yes, and CRTC, and working at the county right now with SWIFT on the fiber, optic and high-speed internet. You know, I'm hopeful that I'll still be here to be able to see it, because it is a 20-year build-out project across southwestern Ontario, and there's about $500 million there that's been granted. How we'll be able to get it going across, but it's from, as I say, southwestern Ontario, Essex County, Windsor to, Simcoe County's in it as well too, so you can go as far as Midland if you want. So it's a large area to recognize, but we're moving that way. But you're right.
Yeah, but I know that's really not.
That's a federal thing. What I can say to you is the part about the roads, obviously in 2013, we'll have to check with the Public Works Infrastructure. Did we change the route?
No, your driver retired. The guy that was driving the grader.
Well, that doesn't mean that we don't have the grader going up the road,
No, I know,
sir.
but he was really well, knew what he was grading and stuff, like, I don't understand the whole process,
Well,
but he was very good at doing his grading and snow clearing and stuff like that.
So we'll check into that. I can't, without finding out what the difference is between 2013 and 2016, I'm pretty sure we still have a grader going up there,
No, you do.
but you're indicating that nothing's being pushed off the road, so that's a concern to
Well,
me.
when your garbage truck can't get up the road, that's a concern too, right? They didn't pick up our garbage, and we called in and they said, well, the garbage truck couldn't get up the hill. So like, that's like, of course, my wife's school bus got up the hill that day, but the other one didn't get up.
Was that once in the winter?
Well, that's once, but you have to understand, if I can't get out, like I have a van, like I have to drive a commercial van to work. I have a pickup truck, which yes, I can get through anything, but because of my nature of my business, I drive a van, and a van, I have snow tires on it and really good ones, but there are days that it's really treacherous to try to even get down the hill or go that way, and if I can't go to work, then I don't get paid.
Well, I know.
I'm self-employed.
It is winter in West Grade, so.
No, I get it.
Those odd days will.
Yeah, I understand the odd day.
We'll look into the road, I guess, but, and the grading, but there are days and there are times.
No, I get it.
Like that, I guess you move into town and live on the highway. That, it's unfortunate that winter happens, but it does.
Well, let's,
All of us can't get to work sometimes because of the weather.
No, I get that. But just on a normal basis. When I had the trusses, there was hardly any snow. And the excuse that was given to me that day when I called in, oh, the grader was broken. But we went and we plowed the thing in order to get a 45-foot tractor trailer up the hill to get my trusses up the hill. I totally understand if you get an exorbitant amount of snow. I get it. I moved into the country. I have snow removal equipment for myself to get out of my driveway and stuff like that. But if the snow plow doesn't come when you have 10 or 15 centimeters and I can't get out to work, that's not an exorbitant issue. If you get 50 centimeters, I totally get it. And I don't like the accusation that says, well, if I need to move into town, I would move into town if I wanted to move into town. But if I know one time when we had an exorbitant snowfall, I was supposed to work in Lions Head, and the client said, well, you got to come anyway, there's no snow up here. I said, well, there's 35 centimeters of snow fell here last night. I totally wouldn't go out anyways because it's not safe, because you could get hurt. But when we're talking 10 to 15 centimeters, when there's snow removal at 10 to 15 centimeters and I can't get out of my driveway, that's a different story. That's where my concern runs. It's not when you get 30 or 40 centimeters, it takes time, and I totally get that.
okay. John, then Doug.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Bishop, roughly knowing where you live at the top of the hill then, are you on the east side of the road or the west side?
I'm on the east side.
You're on the east side, and you would go down the hill and then go to Dornick to go to work most days?
Oh, no, well, if I'm going to Lion's Head or stuff like that, or Owen Sound, I would, but I would drive around the Dutch line to avoid that hill if I had to.
Yes,
Like-
okay.
Like, I know how to get around, and a lot of times I work in Meaford, and then Veterans Road is part of Chatsworth, and that's a disaster.
So you would
sometimes.
drive around Townsend Lake out to Gray Road 12 and go to Market?
If I had to, yeah.
Okay, so there's options, okay.
Yeah, but the problem is a couple times, I couldn't even get down to the Dutch line on the
Yeah.
10 centimeters.
Yep.
And I paid good money for my winter tires
Yeah,
for my van.
As we all do in Glenelg.
Yeah, so-
I feel for you. I understand. Thank you.
No. All right, and there's just one last concern about the police survey that was sent out. I think it's a great idea to have the survey sent out, but I bought mine back into here today, but there are people that won't fill it out if they can't have a way to return it. There was no return envelope sent in the tax bill. I didn't get mine in mine.
Go ahead, Rebecca. No.
Is this a police survey?
Yeah,
There is an online version of it as well, no cost to send it back in. I completed mine online.
okay, I
even though
didn't know
was-
that. I bought the survey in today because they said there was a box here, so.
Yep.
But I'm just concerned if you guys are looking at policing in the next 10 or 15 years, if the surveys get in. That,
We're, with any survey out there, your return rate, if you're 20 to 25%, would we have more if we'd put a self-addressed stamped envelope with each one of them? Possibly, but the complexity of doing that sheet we can put in, but we only have X number of milligrams to be able to send that out at the price. The price for the sending it out, if we add the envelope and everything else in, the envelope and the postage is $1.
yeah.
But it costs us then staff time to be able to put, the envelope in there because you can't automatically do that. Those are all automatically generated. But with the envelope, then you bounce it up that it's another $1 for each one of those ones. It becomes cost prohibitive. So we're hopeful that we get 25%, such as yourself, bringing them in and dropping them here at the office or at the police station, or as Rebecca said, individuals going online and filling them out. It's the cost prohibitiveness of putting a self-addressed envelope stamped in there for that. That's what it comes down to, and that's why we couldn't do it. And it was generated on every 6th tax notice that went out, that it was in. So it wasn't, we didn't pre-select, it was just every 6th one, there was a survey went out in. It didn't go out in every one, just to give us that cross-section, and that's what we're looking at. And then we would have said, physically had to put a self-addressed envelope in there with that, so it wasn't efficient or effective to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Councillor Hutchison has a question, and then...
Just a couple comments from your concerns there, Mr. Bishop. One is, I think if you're having issues with his driveway being washed out, that we should look at that and have Mr. Cook have a visit and take a look, because that shouldn't be happening. And the other thing is, I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to our new chief of police, but he's very open to new ideas and understanding and concerns. And if you haven't had a chance to talk to him, it might be worthwhile making a call just to talk to him and express some of your concerns with policing and what you're looking for, and just to touch base with him, because he's a new gentleman in the role, and I think he's doing a very good job. So it might be worthwhile having a discussion
Okay,
with him.
well, I'll be prepared to do that. It's just, I see more OPP around our neighborhood, and they're not patrolling it than I would see in West Grey.
Yeah, and right, and you are in the West Grey area, but there's OPP out there too, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Might be where some of the OPP live, they're just coming home for lunch.
Yeah, I know. There's one that lives on Traverson.
Yeah. Anyways, that, I think in extension to what Doug has said, we'll look at the police. So there's a couple of members here on the council that sit on the Police Services Board, and, I'm slightly disturbed to hear that, when there's a call made, that there wasn't better coverage, I guess, for your issue. So we'll address that. The road, you've brought it to our attention. We'll get looking on that. The snow removal, as I said, I'm a little bit struck. Yeah, I think I know the individual that, when you say it's in Ganelg, I'm pretty sure I know the individual that retired, but I haven't heard any other issues with the individual that we hired to take his position. But maybe we have changed some of the routes, and if it's a business, we can take a look at helping you with the route and maybe extra sanding or something. I'm not promising anything.
I'll be happy to talk to Tim. He's very
Yeah.
approachable, so
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with him.
You won't talk to him this week. He's on vacation, so we'll hold off until next week when he gets back
But
in.
no, I do like
Yeah.
him. So he's been very approachable with me. And I waited one day when the town line undermined it in a big rainstorm last year and stopped all the school buses coming through because they couldn't see the hole until Tim got there. So, because that was
Very good.
a serious safety issue. So I just waited and stopped the traffic. So, because I didn't want anybody to go in the sinkhole. But he's very approachable. Like, I'm not saying he's not. So
No.
I just need to figure out And I'd like maybe to meet with him so we can figure out how to get the stuff away from my driveway. I have an idea, but I don't want to pay for it because I'm not allowed to dig on town property, so.
On municipal road allowances, we do frown on that. when
I know
it's,
you do, so.
Yeah, there's a few log operators that I wish were as conscientious as some of our constituents were.
Yeah, no, I have an idea, which I was going to just get Al Thompson to do, but of course, I know that I'd have to get approval from the town in order to do it. Because it'd be cheaper for me to pay him than to deal with buying gravel all the time,
Absolutely.
so.
Okay?
Okay, thank you
All
very
right,
much for your
we'll
time.
look into this. Thank you very much. And again, my apologies for the mix-up of not being here last Monday, but being here this Monday. And thank you for bringing those to our attention. And
Thank you
we'll
for
try
still
and work.
hearing me, because as I said, I wrote it down, so I didn't want to,
Very good.
all right?
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Take care. Have a great day, Bill. Then one more motion, move to adjourn, number 20, Mrs. Herger. Thank you very much. Everybody enjoy the day.